We've been looking at the fruit of the Spirit, really a series grow, talking about what it is to grow in Christ. More and more we want to see the fruit of the Spirit in our lives, don't you? I mean, I want to see it in mine. A whole lot more than it is. This is season. I go up 41 every day. And love and joy and peace and patience are tested every day, not to mention kindness and goodness. Forget those. But more and more I want to see that manifested in my life, and I know it can be, because God tells us it can be. And the fruit of the Spirit we're looking at, I want to remind you of a couple of things. Well, first I want to read them, whether you've got them in your mind. But the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, self-control. Against such things there is no law. Just to recap, when we're looking at the fruit of the Spirit, these are fruit, not fruits. It's a unity here in the fruit. It's like love is one of the flavors of that one fruit of the Spirit. Does that make sense? And joy is another flavor of it. But it's a unity. There's a unity in those fruit. And they're fruit, not disciplines. These aren't things that you get by saying, I'm going to be more loving. I don't care. I'm going to be more loving. They're not the things that you gain that way. They are something that the Spirit grows in your life, and if you're a follower of Jesus Christ, that seed's already there. It's planted deep in you, and it takes root. Sometimes it's more noticeable than others. But it's there, and the great thing about it being a fruit of the seed is it has the potential then to multiply. It has the potential to multiply. They used the illustration last week. You go out, you get an orange, you eat an orange, the nasty little things you don't eat are called what? Seeds. You plant them, you do it right, and there are more oranges. Fruit of the Spirit has that same potential in your life and in mine. And today we are looking at the fruit of goodness. Goodness. Appropriate. Because we've seen this week even the epitome of ungoodness, so to speak. And we've seen it in Parkland in the shooter. Did you hear what was said, what the shooter said, that he had demons telling him what to do? Did you see that in the paper? The paper captured that. I was like, he heard voices telling him how to shoot. Like, does this not point out that it's spiritual? It is. It's spiritual. We've seen the epitome of ungoodness. We see it day in, day out in the newspapers, in the politics, and in traffic, all kinds of places. Rachel and I, she's not here, we were driving yesterday, and some woman cut someone off, and so the person hopped their horn, and the person that cut them off just waved at them. And there you see the epitome of ungoodness. But here we're told that the fruit of the Spirit, if we have part of Christ, if we have any part with Him, then what should be there in us to some degree, and what should be growing is what? It's goodness. It's goodness. So what is goodness? I wanted to look at this, and here it is. Goodness indicates the quality which a man has who is good. Okay. I spent a lot of money for a theological dictionary in the New Testament. 10 volumes. Greek words. Study. Hellenistic use. Old Testament use. Intertestamental use. New Testament use. All this. Boom. And this is the best it could give me on goodness. Goodness is the quality of being good. How ridiculous. But this is it. It's hard. One of those things I want to point out, it's hard to explain it. It's a lot easier to see than it is to give that concise definition with it. It's interesting because notions of goodness have changed. Francis Schaeffer wrote back in the 70s. He was somebody who was able to take a snapshot and a picture of the trends in culture throughout history and how they moved from really being hopeful to going below a line of despair. And he goes, things have changed. When I was growing up, my dad looked at me and he said, "Steve, be good." When he went out, did I know what he meant? Absolutely. Absolutely. But he said a parent nowadays, and he looks at his child and goes, be good tonight, he is more likely to get a puzzled look from her than he is for her to know it again. Because the definition of good and the content of it is in flux, and it changed. And what one person thinks is good isn't what another person thinks is good. Is that not true? We don't have a solid definition of it anymore, and I may think it's good, I may think it's good to help someone across the street, and that may offend that person. The goodness has changed, and it's even gotten to the point with existentialist philosophy where it'd be equally moral or good to hit somebody with a hammer as it would to help them across the street. Definitions of good have changed. They have. Does it really matter what's good? Goodness, does it really matter? Absolutely. What's good for you, it matters, and there's something that we need to lay hold of as followers of Jesus Christ. There's something we need to understand very distinctly. God in Isaiah chapter 5, verse 20 says this, woe to those who call evil good and good evil, who substitute darkness for light and light for darkness, who substitute bitter for sweet and sweet for bitter. Does it matter what the real essence of goodness is? It certainly does. Because God says right here, woe to those who call good evil and evil good. Right now, there's a lot of that going on in the world. Right now, there's a lot of that going on. It's good to have an abortion. It's good to live in a way different than God made you. Sexually. It's good to be hateful to somebody. This is coming from the church. We can crush somebody if they don't agree with us. And these kind of things are being thrown around. And some of them are being touted from pulpits or from homes that claim the name of Christ. It's good for a couple to live together before marriage. These things are being thrown out, and they're flying right in the face of what the Bible teaches. And what God says is, woe to those who call evil good and good evil. I don't know about you. I don't really understand what woe is, but I don't want it. And I don't want it from God, do you? So I want to get down what He says is good and what He says is evil. I want to live and I want to embrace His standard of goodness. That's what I've got to live by. That's what I want. The Bible's definition of good, as he throws it out in Micah chapter 6, verse 8, he says, He's told you, O man, what is good. Did any of you ever get tests where they gave you the questions ahead of time? Here it is, the answers and the questions. He's told you what's good. What does the Lord require of you but to do justice, to love kindness, and to walk humbly with your God? We're given that as a standard, and what it points out to us, that's not the whole essence of goodness. It's part of what it's there, and what it does point out to us is God's notion of goodness is never abstract. It's not what feels good. His notion of goodness is solid. You can sink your teeth in it, and you can see what it is. God and His goodness is what is key, period. If you want to learn what goodness is, and I think we all do, and I think to some degree we know it, Psalm 34:8, oh, taste and see that the Lord is good. Blessed is the man who takes refuge in Him. Taste and see. He invites us to do that. Have you tasted the goodness of God? Have you tasted? I'm just going to ask real quickly. We've got a smaller group. What are some places you've tasted the goodness of God? Where's God shown you His goodness?
He's shown me His goodness by taking care of me in one of the worst times of my life. And just felt His love, just enveloped me. It's so overwhelming. It's incredible. And I tasted it.
Absolutely. It's amazing. Nothing like it. Where else? Where else have you tasted God's goodness? Anybody?
Right.
Then go ahead. 2 days. Both have your hand up. Go ahead. Go figure that out.
Go figure, right? Yeah.
brought you together and you've seen it. That's good. Dave, and then
Since we've been back in town now, we've been looking for a church with good teaching, fellowship, and real love from the people. And good to see God loves it.
so,
I can say I'm experiencing God's goodness on a daily basis in terms of God being good, not letting me go into much trouble, or something really serious happening to me or my family. Case in point, yesterday, I had a trouble in the car. We were going to the store, and out of nowhere, I'm driving on a street, and out of nowhere, behind the car, here comes this truck at full speed, almost running into the car. She turned around and screamed and went back. So it is just by God's mercy and God's goodness that everybody is good.
amen. Anybody else want to share about God's goodness? Yeah.
God's goodness of being there in a really dark time in our family and helping to bring, someone who needed it back into his life. And then also God providing the provision that was needed in all
You've tasted, right? You've seen His goodness, and you sit there and you go, God is good because. And you go, wow. Well, in the middle of all this about goodness, I'm going to bring something up, this passage of Scripture that I think highlights His goodness as much as anything. Any of you ever been through a difficult time? What's the Bible verse that if you're a follower of Jesus, everybody quotes when you're in a difficult time? Romans 8:28. God, we know that God causes, it has that word all there. Why couldn't it be most things? Because then it'd be plausible more. But he says what? All things to work together for the good to those who love God, to those who are called according to His purpose. So many times when I was listening, and I didn't set this up, your stories of tasting God's goodness came out of what? Came out of emptiness or hurt. You'd reached the end. You couldn't find fellowship, the loss of your mom, something, all those happened, hard times. And God's goodness is tasted. And we need to understand when we say that God works everything together for the good of those that love Him, it doesn't mean your pleasure. But it means He works it together for good. And this is key because we live in a world that says, who sets the standard for good? You do. We live in a world that says you do. You do. And truthfully, it can get to the point where when you're singing the songs or you're reading the Scripture, it says, oh Lord, you are good. Who's the one judging? We are, right? We're going, God, I pronounce you good. And God goes, you puny little peon. Who's pronouncing who good? Something is good because God says it's good, not because we say it is. And we step back and we capture that, and when we see that, we come face to face with the fact that who isn't good? We're not. Outside of Jesus, we are not good. So, the question I love throwing up every week, I do it with everyone in the group. How does one become good? Okay, you're going to write the book? You're going to give out the 5 principles, go on Oprah, sell it? Or I guess the book thing is Dr. Phil, right? You can go on and sell it with him. You're going to do that? No, you can't. There's not a set of principles that you can just go, here, I do this, and this, and I'm good. Because when you lay a hold of that, who's the one who's trying to be in control? You are. And Jesus did not come and die to make you the best version of you. He came and He died to make you new and to transform you. And that's the beauty. That's part of the beauty of this as we're looking at the fruit of the Spirit, is my notion of goodness has to go. One of the reasons that I think I had to go through, some people have just been through one or two difficult times in their life and that's it. I go through them quite a bit because I'm a slow learner. And when I go through those, what God is doing is He is really part of what He's doing is He's making me let go of myself and my notions of what's good and hold on to who? To Him, and to find my goodness in Him and in Him alone. Period. God and His goodness is the key. There was a time in the Bible when Jesus was doing ministry that a guy came up to him, and he was a rich young ruler. Some of you have been around church a while, you know that passage. And the rich young ruler, when he ran up to Jesus, he said this, it's interesting. He goes, Jesus was setting out on a journey, a man ran up to him, knelt before him and asked him, "Good teacher, what shall I do to inherit eternal life?" Does that sound like a good request? It's a great request. Knelt down before him. He knew something was going on with Jesus. And Jesus said to him, "Why do you call me good? No one is good except God alone." We want to try to find our goodness in listening to what a teacher says and applying it in our lives. It won't work. Jesus was pointing to the fact here, the guy thought he was pretty good, he was just lacking a little, right? And Jesus pointed him to the only one who can make it good, and that is to God. And in essence, what Jesus is telling him is goodness is bound up in who? God. And for us to be good people means we have to be godly. And to be godly isn't this set of principles. It's not the way we dress or comb our hair or the way we speaketh. Godliness deals in a relationship with the one who's good. It deals, and it's all bound up in a relationship with Him. When we set the standard about what good is and we try to correct it, what we end up with is what? What we have in this world. I mean, the very first time that men and women tried to determine what was good for themselves was what?
When they tried to take that food.
Yeah, the Garden of Eden. I mean, when Satan said you'll be like God, knowing good and evil, it wasn't knowing like, oh, I'll understand it, it's determining it. And so when they try to do that, how's that been working for us? Not very good. Throw the fruit away. Go back to the one that caused us the fruit to grow, to God Himself. Spend time. The godliness is connected to Him, period. It's relational. It's relational. If we try to be godly without the relationship with God, you know who we end up like? You got my sermon. You got my sermon right there. Absolutely the devil. Martin Luther, writing almost 500 years ago, said this about Satan. The devil is ever God's ape. Have you ever done that at a zoo? You go to a zoo, the monkeys are there, and you scratch your nose, and what do? Scratch your nose, you pick your nose. No, you don't do that, do you? All right, good. But you know, you do stuff they imitate. And this is what Martin Luther said about Satan. At his best, he tries to imitate God. Now, he does it with evil intent. But even if we try to do it with good intent without a relationship, who are we more like? The devil. The Pharisees tried to imitate God without the relationship. Friends, so many people think the evangelical Christian church, the ones that hold the Bible as true, are like this, rather than being more like God. And how many times in my life have I captured this more than I've captured being like God? Really, it's about relationship. We want to be like Him. The fruit of the Spirit is God's work in you. That's what it is. Is there a place we work in following God with the fruit of the Spirit? Is there a place we work? Or are we just sort of standing like this? Where do we work? God's the one. It's the fruit of the Spirit. Does He bring it forth in you? Yes. So where do we work? Trick question, huh? It's a pretty good answer. You know, where we work is we are active. We have to die to ourselves and to sin. Right after this, in the fruit of the Spirit, is those who crucified the flesh with its passions. We die to ourselves, and the Puritans used to call it mortification of the flesh. To kill the flesh, the tendencies that want to pull away from God, the tendencies that want to determine what's good on my own, all of those things. And then the second place where we do work is we have to keep in step with the Spirit. Is God at work in your life? If you're a follower of Jesus Christ, is God at work in your life?
Yes.
Can you see Him? You can't see Him. Is there evidence where He works? Yeah. So how can I keep in step with the Spirit? You know, if I'm in a place where God is telling me that my heart's hard. How do I know that? Because I've exemplified it somewhere in God. It's like, I can't be that way. So what am I going to do? How am I going to keep in step with the Spirit? Go back. You start focusing. You start praying on that. You go back. You may have to correct that. You said something snippy. You go back and you go, hey, I'm sorry about that. I messed up. That's not the way I should act. I want you to forgive me. And you do that. You sense where God's at work. You continue to just kill those things that are ungodly in us. And you watch God bring more and more the fruit of the Spirit in your life. That's what He does. And Jesus in Luke chapter 6, He talks about it that way. And this to me is sort of looking at the good man out of the good treasure of his heart brings forth what? What is good? The evil man? Well, not so much, right? Brings forth. God does work and He changes. You're not going to be perfect in this life. The confidence and the assurance that you have is Jesus Christ came and He lived and He died and He rose again to transform you, to bring you to God and for all the fullness of God to be there for you and in you. The promise of God is as you are His, the fruit of the Spirit, the seed is there in you. And you read through that list and you go, love, joy, peace, patience, kindness. God, I'm so far from these things. Have the assurance that He is at work in you. And keep going to Him. And spend time with Him and He brings those fruit to bear in your life. And I'm going to tell you something. As you do that, there comes a place where people come up to you and you're not working on it, trying to be good. You're walking with God. And they come up and go, something's different about you. What's changed? You're probably honest at that point. You go, I don't know. But, the biggest thing in my life is this. This guy, let me tell you about it. And they're ready to hear at that point. And they're ready to hear. Because God's at work to give them the question, for you to give them the answer. Friends, the world needs goodness. The world needs it. We live in a world that's broken. In a world that's about as ungood as it can be. When I look at my own heart so many times, what do I see? Ungoodness. And what if I walk with God? What if I hold on to Him? What if I say no to the things that would just make me show badness? hold on to Him and I grow in Him, and goodness starts to take root in me, what do you think that would do in my family life? And if we all did that, if every one of us starts and we start walking with God in this, and we see Him bringing that fruit in our lives, what do you think happens in this community? God's about change. Changing you and changing this world. Do you really think this world can be transformed by the goodness of God? Where does that goodness start? Not with me going, "My God, I'm going to be good today. I'm going to go out and do 4 good deeds for Him." By me going to God and going, "God, I don't have an ounce of goodness in me outside of Jesus. So I'm going to hold on to you, Lord. I'm going to walk with you.